All right. For better or for worse, we are doing this. Welcome, everybody, to the first ever Brock and Dwight podcast. Dwight, a.k.a. the world's strongest plumber. He's got big muscles, but even bigger conspiracies. How about that?
Pow.
Does that work for you? Can we do
That's
like
fine. We can go with that.
Okay, so Dwight, you and I have BS'd enough back and forth just in our personal lives, and we're like, you know what? People need to hear this. People need to hear the conspiracy theories, the thoughts, the deep dive into the world around us. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to bring everyone in to the mind of Dwight, aka the world's strongest plumber, and me, who's maybe, you know what, I'm the straight man in this. All right. I'm the guy who's going to be asking the questions, picking your brain, and figuring out whether or not there's any validity to what we're talking about here. Is that okay? Can we
Yeah, but first things first, you cannot use those big words that you just used. Anything more than a couple syllables, you've lost me.
He's a big dumb animal, folks, but that's why we love him right there. Again, when all the blood rushes, when the blood rushes to your muscles and not your brain, you get confused very easily. So I will talk slow, and we'll make this work. We'll make this work. Brock and Shango on the air. Okay, so Dwight, we started off with a laundry list of things, but I think the first one for us to talk about is aliens. Now, I know people are going to be like, all right, aliens have been done before, yada, yada, yada. But you're a guy that has done some, I would say, extensive research on that. So first, let's just kick it off with this. Are aliens real?
It depends on what you mean by the word alien.
So
I'm going to start off there.
Okay, I like that. Now, okay, alien in the sense of the word. Mars attacks. Back. Or maybe the little gray guy at Area 51. Let's say that alien.
You going with the gray guy, the Area 51 alien?
Are those two different ones?
I would say how do I want to start this? I want to start this by saying, and I want to start this by being completely 100% serious, is that I think that we think too much like humans, right?
Okay.
I want to put this out there, and I've heard this before, and this has been said before, is if worms found out people were real, they would probably say, that's interesting. I wonder what kind of dirt they eat, right? It's perspective. And I don't think that as human beings, we're always looking to the sky. We're looking beyond. We're thinking that things are out there when they're not. They're right here. So when you use the term alien, and again, I'm not an expert. I don't know. We're all winging this stuff, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're talking about, really. Nobody knows, right? But this is my perspective of what I've learned. And I was a huge critic of this stuff. I didn't believe I believe it when I see it, right? But I think that there's a huge form of ignorance that comes along with that. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around this whole subject. I don't think that the word alien is the right word. I think the word for the...
Okay, yeah, well, what word would you use then?
Being.
Okay.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
A much larger, kind of painting with a broader stroke in being, because we are seeing everything from our human eyes, where we're at, however long we've been on this earth. So for us, it's it's an alien, but it could be much more copacetic. It could be more simpatico with us and who we are, or it could be far off.
I warned you about the big words. Okay. But simpatico. I like that.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah. I'm Catholic, but no.
Okay. So now hold on. Because I wanted, that's interesting to me, because the term being is I think much more, we can wrap our minds around that because we are human beings. So where do we start then on what maybe possible beings are out there, or what we as a human species have even discovered? Because we could say that there's beings on this earth. Shit down at the bottom of the ocean in the Mariana Trench, the Marinara Trench. Which one is it? I think it's.
I believe that's a light, creamy tomato sauce.
That's right. At Olive Garden, it's available at Olive Garden now. But we could even look at those in parts that we haven't discovered as beings. So I guess break that down a little bit more for us.
Okay, so if I break that down, I'm going to go from the macro to the micro. And
okay.
I guess interdimensional beings. I don't think that these things are off planet. And again, this is just me spitballing here. This is me kind of trying to put these things together.
Yeah.
And I've done a pretty good job of it so far with a lot of other things, right? So I guess if you want to, if I can kind of take things, I'm a systems guy, right? Mm-hmm. With my profession and everything, I had to know how the system works for it to work, right? So I have to understand it first. And I think with things like that we went through the last 3 years, I was spot on even beforehand. If we get into that later, but that's
that'll be a conversation for the next podcast.
Yeah, but that I just figured it out, right? I figured it out before the even play came. So this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get ahead of the curve and kind of figure some things out and listen to certain people that I think that they have really good ideas. Mm-hmm. So I think interdimensional would be more of a proper term for what these things are, right? And what's behind what we're seeing. And what we're seeing are just, well, again, we think too much like humans. And I think what we're seeing is what's being perceived to us by these beings.
So we're seeing what they want us to see. Is that fair?
I think that's part of it. That's part of it. I think that if you understand, you know what a tesseract is?
No, again, I am as far in layman's terms as possible for me.
So we kind of see in a couple, three dimensions, right? Mm. So we live in a 3-dimensional world, right? What if there was a fourth, fifth dimension that was right around us that we couldn't see? And possibly, is that where these things are coming from? Mm-hmm. Right? So they're kind of bleeding in. And I think that there's a lot of correlation between nuclear development and why these things are here. And they've been appearing since human beings have been here, probably even before that, right? Mm-hmm. We have stories of them coming in and out. I think that I don't think that they're here by accident. I think, they're flying around the galaxy. I think that a lot of people think they're just flying around the galaxy looking for other things. Mm-hmm. They're not here by accident. They're here. They've never been off planet. They're on our planet, but it's actually their planet in maybe just a different dimension, right?
Okay.
And maybe there's some concerns that they have that we're doing, like, holy shit, they're blowing up they've learned how to harness the power of the sun and split the atom. And maybe that's bleeding over into their dimension, their world. And maybe it's having some effect on them. And maybe that's why they're here. Now,
okay. So that's interesting. So are they our caretakers? Are they our creators? Or is it just we happen to be not at the same evolutionary step as them, and we're working on it and they're kind of guiding us? Or is it two just separate dimensions, or the dimensions that are just happen to be in the same spot that are crossing over? And like you said, we're affecting them more than they want us to, or they need to guide us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that there's probably a combination of some of that, but I don't think that they have our best intentions in interest. That it's definitely not our best intentions are part of their agenda. Let's just put it that way.
So they don't mind us being there, kind of like we're almost like the cockroach to their world. It's like, look, if you don't see us and we're not digging into your food and causing too bad of a ruckus, that's fine. You're there, but hey, we've done some things now. Maybe we've gotten into their world, and they're like, oh, okay, we got to watch this now. We got to maybe stifle them or back them off or anything like that.
I think that's part of it. I think they know I think they're interested in other things, but that became part of the problem too. Maybe not a problem, but part of their interest too. Are they interested? We can kind of get into that. I think that it provoked some things, right? It provoked them coming through more and trying to figure out what we're doing. What are those crazy apes doing down there, right? Okay, now they split the atom. Now what? AI, are they scared of that? Are they scared of our AI? because I think with AI, we could probably discover them more. Do they want to be discovered? I don't know. But I don't think that they have our best intentions in mind when they're coming here. And
now,
that kind of leads into their other agenda.
Okay. So at this point, we can be more of a nuisance. Are we lower on the evolutionary totem pole than they are? Let's establish that. Are we lower than them?
That's a good question. And I think that we think in terms of like human beings, that like intelligence is end all be all.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case. And intelligence wise, maybe it's like trying to teach your dog algebra. Like we're the dog and they're the human trying to teach algebra to a dog. And we just can't comprehend it. Right.
Yeah.
But our brains just aren't there yet for us to understand. We're not ready for it yet. So maybe that's a possibility. But I don't think that it has anything to do. Again, this is just me speculating, like from what I've kind of put together. It doesn't have anything to do with intelligence. It has to do with consciousness. And I think that's the key. That's what they want. And that's what they're obsessed with us about. I think that there's an obsession there.
I love this. And here's the thing. I've known Dwight since I was 16 years old, and we have never dug this deep in any of this. And I'm really intrigued in this because there's a lot of stuff that me as a doubting Thomas, and like we've talked about, I'd love to see it. All right. I need to see the wounds in the hands to prove that it's Jesus. All right. Makes sense. And same thing with this is like, I'd like to joke and say, oh, there's no effing way, but the universe is so vast. Our understanding of it is so small. And so even breaking this down is very, very intriguing, because are we living on the same plane as other beings? Are we sharing a planet with them? Are we sharing a dimension with them? Are we crossing streams? So this is really, really intriguing to me, especially if we are maybe the little, I don't know, the cog in the gears, if you will. If we're the ones causing problems for these other people, whether they want to know what we're doing, if they're interested in what we're doing, if we know something that they don't, and now they're trying to figure it out, I guess I'm trying to put my mind around what exactly messing with us or being involved with us is going to benefit them. And maybe we've already covered that. That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around is, what are they getting? Maybe they were there and helped us build the pyramids. What did they get from that? Maybe they were there at the beginning of man and gave us fire and helped us advance to the next point. So what are they gaining? What could they gain from us in the big picture of things?
So when you say they, I think that there's also many different theys. Okay. So some have a different agenda than others, right? And some are a result of others, possibly. And we could go back to like Greek mythology, and this has been said before too, that the stories of warring gods, and that these things were at war, and they fought over us, or they fought over the plane that they're on, this planet, whatever. Mm-hmm. I think what we're going to really want to break down is kind of what everybody wants to talk about, and what everybody wants to talk about, and I'm just going to get right to it, are the grays, are these little gray things, right? We all know what they are. Right? Yeah. They're the iconic looking alien, right?
Yep.
I think I think they're a race. I think that they're that thing that's on this plane, but somewhere else, right? But I also think that they're not theys, right? If you want to like gender, don't misgender them.
What's their pronouns? What are their pronouns?
I think they're automatons. And I think from what I've heard and kind of seen, is they're kind of like leftover drones that have become more self-aware, right? Like, look at what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Maybe we make an AI that becomes conscious and self-aware, and then all of a sudden puts itself into a body. Whether that body is human, right? We think like humans. We think it's going to like turn into like a Terminator. Yep. Maybe it puts itself into something else. Maybe it puts itself into something microscopic. Like, I mean, that you can't see, that can do whatever it wants. It becomes a god, right? These things maybe were left behind. They're automatons. They're organic. They're kind of flesh and blood, but they're flesh and blood clones of something, right?
Of some other being that was here before and was invested in us at some way, shape, or point, but then either they lost interest or maybe they have some other bigger issues somewhere else on a different parallel.
Something happened where they had to leave and they just left these things behind. I mean, that's a possibility. It's a possibility that's been talked about. Like, what are they? Where like, they kind of seem to have no emotion, and again, that people talk about like tall whites, which are just human beings that are like almost look like Norse gods. And they've Travis, he's the Fire in the Sky guy. I'm drawing a blank. Travis Walton.
Oh, okay.
He talked about them. And I mean, if you want to go back, like, and talk about like all the incidents that, that have happened, that's one of the ones that have had the most witnesses. It's kind of the most documented. It's the most real, in my opinion, right? You have to disprove that. How can you? I mean, there's so many people involved with that. Even people that didn't like him that said, yeah, this all went down. This happened. He talked about tall whites, and that was part of this, right? So you kind of can't rule that out too. And are they like the mastermind behind all this? I don't know. But what I think is going on, when you kind of get to your core question, what you were talking about is, what do they want? What do they want? Right.
Yeah.
And again, it leads back to the subject of consciousness. And if these things are automatons, right, where they're not right. They're not robotic, but they're not organic like we are, right?
So
they're kind of something in the mix.
They had a creator, but they're not sure who that creator is or what their purpose is, just like us as humans, and why religion is just such a huge part of our species, of our being on this earth. Is we all want to know, like, who am I? Why am I here? What am I doing? What is my purpose? And so you got these grays that aren't sure yet, but they see us chasing this dream, chasing this thing, and now they kind of want to figure that out. Is that am I on the right path?
You're kind of on the right path there. Yeah. And I think that their technology has been left behind with them, and that they're creative, and that's where these, that's where you get the craft and all this other stuff. And they can live here. They can kind of bleed over into the other dimension, wherever they're from. But again, they're from here. They're not, I don't think they're flying back to Zeta Reticula. I don't think that's happening. But yeah, I think you're on the right path. And what I say by the right path is they're looking for eternal life. And they figured it out. And they figured it out that we have a soul and that we have consciousness. Anything with consciousness and a soul that's self-aware can have like an eternal life. And maybe that's the key to this, right? Is that they're looking at these human beings like, and I think too that people don't give us enough credit. People don't look at us and are like, oh, what do they care? They're coming from like millions of miles away. Don't give a crap about some stupid apes down the planet. Bullshit. Bullshit. We're special. And I think we're special because we became conscious. And I think we became conscious based on maybe who created these things. They kind of maybe fucked with us a little bit. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good word to use. They kind of tweaked with us. They took like a lower hominid and they said, we can probably use that and tweak it a little bit, maybe give us a little evolutionary jump, and boom, we became conscious. I mean, there's really nothing else on the planet that's like that.
Yeah.
I don't, dolphins, porpoises might be intelligent, but I don't see them building super skyways. But again, we think
they
like
do have
beings.
Sex for pleasure, though. They do have sex for pleasure.
They do. So again, maybe I'm wrong, and I'm thinking like a human being, and maybe these things are like more on the level with those things, and maybe they are conscious. I don't know. But I think
and that right there, and not to cut you off, because I have like 3 thoughts in my head I want to go into. We're going to talk about divine creator, we're going to talk about government, and then now let's just dive into this right here, is because one, I think, key point and thing we can lean on this, and maybe we make this as the title of the podcast, is thinking like a human, is it's so hard for us to get out of our own heads because we are top of the food chain. We're conscious. We know that we are alive. We know that we're here. But that's very hard to break away from, because what's normal to us is not normal to that worm. It's not normal, like going to the very beginning. So it's hard for us to break away and think like all these other things that may be thinking like us, but in their own way. Right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And I think that from what people are saying too, in abductions and things like that. And again, like maybe some of this stuff is faked, maybe some of it's real, but it's got to be, to me, to me, there's just too much consistency. Mm-hmm. There's too much there, right? And again, haven't seen it, really, haven't experienced it at all, but there's just too much. There's too much there. There's too much, hey, we're seeing these things. The government's saying that it's there. Like, and for the government to come out, and again, I don't think the government's in control of this stuff. I think they're just, the government, I think, is just so out of control, reckless, and just incompetent that it's private sector, right? So like for them to come out and say that like this stuff's going on, that's a huge blow. But from what the people are saying in these abductions is that the whole hybrid thing. I mean, it's consistent across the board, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody that says that, like, says that they're doing sexual experiments. Sometimes there's like sexual encounters with, and I know you'd like this, but there's sexual encounters with aliens, and there's all sorts of stuff, and they manifest themselves in a way that the human wants to see it, to kind of engage with them, and they're creating these hybrids. And I think what they're doing is trying to create consciousness so they have what we have, and what we have is like an eternal life with a soul. And they figured it out. They just don't have that yet. And then, and I think that's their end goal. That's their end goal.
Before we go too deep into that, because that kind of goes into my divine creator and soul, because it's interesting to have this conversation and hear that word. Let's just dip back over into the government side of this, because I've had this conversation with my buddy Hunter, and we've kind of talked and we've joked, but there is a part of me, it's like, okay, if the government does know or is aware and not telling us, do you think us as a human species, all right, as human beings, where we're at now, could we handle if all of a sudden a gray person, like the president of the United States comes out and says, look, we've talked enough about this. We think you're all ready. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the gray man. And they bring out a guy who has been maybe working with them. Could we handle that as a society, in your honest opinion?
I think that there'd be a lot of people saying it's bogus. That it's not true, that it's like some sort of
hoax,
psyop,
some political campaign push, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate that we're kind of at that point too. My opinion, government's scared shitless. They can't control these things, and I think that they're looking to these private sector. Who's running the show? It's EG&G. It's aerospace companies. It's Lockheed Martin. They're running the show. They tell you what to do. They tell the government what to do. They tell them that if you want this stuff, you play ball with us and you give us a little bit of a playground to play with this stuff at. That's who's in control of this stuff. Not the government, not the Air Force, not them.
The Air Force. So there's something farther beyond the government. The government's kind of just a face man, if you will. The government is there to play nice and make everything seem like we're okay, we're doing good. We'll give them a little bit of this, we'll keep them teased here. Here's a video here, because I did find something and I thought this was kind of interesting. I'm going to share this with you, and I think you should be able to see it on there, but let me just share screen, Chrome tab, because I thought this was interesting. And maybe this is fake, who knows, but we're going to share this. So this is a front view of the stealth bomber. Can you kind of see that? Can you see how in this photo right there, right? And how that looks like a UFO, and how someone would say like, oh man, that's UFO technology. And the government is using this from aliens. So that kind of brings my original question, how the government is involved. What's your take on that? Are we using bits and pieces from this alien technology? Are they letting us use it? Where are you at on that? Because it intrigues me, thinking that the government really has nothing to do with this. We're just scared and we're just trying to keep the peace.
I think you're comparing the B-2 bomber, right? Mm-hmm. The B-1 stealth. I think you're comparing that technology to something that you probably could. It's a horse and buggy compared to an F1 race car. It's not even quite, and it's not even an F1 race car. You should compare a horse and buggy to the B-2 bomber, right? Like the B-1.
And
that's how far apart this is. That technology that was built to build that aircraft, right? It's not even close. It's not even close. We're not getting anything. I don't think that we're getting anything from the technology that we have in possession.
Yeah.
And putting it into that crap. And don't get me wrong, that crap is pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
The $1 billion worth of crap right there.
But exactly. But it's crap compared to what that other stuff is. That stuff's junk.
Really?
It's garbage.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, I don't even think that thing breaks the sound barrier. And what does it do? Carry some nukes across the thing, and it's got a low profile for radar detection, and it okay, awesome. It does like 600 miles an hour. Cool. In one direction. It's got vector thrust, or say an F-22. It's got vector thrust. Cool. Cool.
Is that
it means nothing to this stuff?
Is that our answer maybe to try and flex a little on these people we're scared of that are running the show, or what's that?
No, I think it's human contact. Like we're flexing on other humans, right? We're flexing on Russia and China and all that stuff. And it's like, you want the ultimate flex? The ultimate flex is flying around this disc that we hold so dear, right? That these companies are holding dear. They're not taking this stuff out and like flying it all over the place. It's maybe some tests and stuff like that, but they can't risk this thing. This thing is these craft, this tech. So you got to go on the technology side of things. This technology makes you a god. And that kind of leads into some other things too, is that what is this tech? I don't think it's a thing, it's a what. And I think that it interfaces with whatever being is in it, right? Or, operating it. It's an interface. You become it. And I mean, to see what, you want to go to the whole Bob Lazar thing and how he explained how it worked, or other people.
That's the guy, like, I would love, because there's so much here. I almost feel like I opened up that I wasn't ready for, because we could talk about Bob Lazar and all that. And let's save that for another day. And maybe the tech thing for another day, because that's, I think, a whole different thing. It's just, it's interesting to me, because one of the big things that the average human latches onto is, look at our technology. We took that from the aliens. But now hearing from you that, and this is an interesting take, is that, like, shit, we're scared of these guys. We're doing just everything we can to maybe not piss them off and keep them from doing whatever they can do because of their advanced technology. So that's where the government plays in, because I guess most of us, and myself included, thinks the government knows everything. They are just keeping it from us because we couldn't handle it right now. And a lot of technology that we have is based off of a UFO that landed in Roswell in 1940. Pre
Roswell, 45. They thought that they had something. I mean, there was a crash down in that they talk about down in Brazil too, where the U.S. government came in and took it. I mean, Balthazar talks about 9 of them.
Yeah,
right. They've got more than one, and it just doesn't start with Roswell. Roswell just kind of got the pop, right? And I think that people just got exposed to it. Oops, this got out. Like, no, let's walk this back. That just took everybody's eye, right? And there was things before. There was supposedly one in Missouri too.
Really?
Yeah. What's the name of the town where Rush Limbaugh is from? It was him, and he was asked about it. And he said, I can't tell you, like, for certain, yes, it did happen, but something really did happen there. And that was Rush Limbaugh talking about that.
Yeah.
Everybody in the town, I should know the town, I'll talk about it. And this was in the 40s too. And that was like the Midwest Roswell that happened.
Let's save the tech alien talk. I think we're going to need to expand this over a few podcasts. Because that tech thing is just a whole different thing. Because now looking at where we're at, and even AI or what we have, let's go in now too. You mentioned the word soul, and that is interesting to me, because as a religious guy, as a Christian, I'll put that out there. I'm a believer. I was raised Lutheran. It's still a very important part of my life, and the soul is something that Christians, that's what we hold on to. We have a soul that separates us from I guess I shouldn't say, because I don't know if God, to me, God created everything on this earth. He created the universe. He created the beasts on the land and in the sea, and then man it came from him, came from the dirt, from the earth. But to hear, and in this conversation about aliens, about extraterrestrials, about other beings, that word, to hear you say soul and what they're interested is very intriguing to me. So let's talk about the soul. Where does our soul come from, and why would an extraterrestrial being be interested in that? If that's too loaded of a question,
that's loaded. That's loaded because I'm gonna quote Socrates here. Yep. Socrates, and I'm gonna say that which I do not know, I do not think I know. Mm-hmm. And again, this is the whole thing. Like that which I do not know, I do not think I know. I'm speculating. I don't know. I haven't discovered that answer yet. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know. All I know is that that's something incredibly special, and that's why we are special, and that's why I think that a lot of these people that try to they're anti-human, and they look at us like, man, we suck, and it's like, yeah, sometimes, but not always, and not all the time. So we're special, and I don't know. I don't know where that comes from.
A divine creator, it could be, again, we don't know. Maybe. And again, kind of going into these, like you said, these grays that were left behind, these drones or droids,
or the automatons.
Maybe they're angry at their original creators for giving us something. Like, so, hey, we got this cool shit, but we just left you guys here, and you don't have that eternal spot or what it is. I mean, we could speculate all we want, but it's just so in the word soul, because that is something that is so key in religions. That's what my soul will leave my body. My soul, I am going to heaven. I'm going to wherever it may be. Hell, probably for me. That's where I mean, let's be honest. That's where I'm going. But
I would probably put my money there.
You're right next to me, buddy. I don't care where.
All right, save me a seat, bro. I'll wear shorts and a t-shirt.
It's hot down there, man. But that's just so interesting to even hear that word brought up in this conversation and where we're at, because is that what makes us special? Was that given to us by someone in the universe that was here, that is still here, that is involved with us? Is it one? Is it many?
You said something too. You said, are they angry? And I don't know. I don't think so, because I think you have to have a soul to actually be angry. Like, I think animals react just based on,
your instinct,
a reaction, right? Yeah. They're not angry, they're not aware. They're not self-aware. So if they don't have that, then no, I don't think that they're angry. I think they're curious. I think they're curious. I honestly, I don't know that. I don't know the soul answer thing. Like, it's one of those things, like, if I knew, then I kind of know everything there is to know about why they're here. If that's the case, if they're here for that, if that's their number one interest, you would think the planet, right? You'd be like, look at this place awesome. But there's probably a million or billion different planets that are better than our planet.
They just found one, and I'm just shooting from the hip here, but what I just saw was NASA, and again, it's like 100 million light years away. We would never reach it in our lifetime, but it's much like it orbits a star just like the sun. It's got water, it's got all that stuff that what we've seen. And you're absolutely right. And again, thinking like a human, we're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's like us, but is it like us? Like, it's hard for us to wrap our minds around the vastness of the universe and where it starts and where it ends. And so it's even thinking about other planets, like, is there, or no, this is it. We just have our little 8 planet little galaxy that's around the sun, and we learned that little fun, my very important mother bought us 7 pizzas or wherever the fuck it was. You know what I mean? And that's what we live in. And that's what we know.
Right.
But yeah, what is special about this place and what we're doing now, and who would be involved in that?
Other than we share it with them, we share it just on a different plane. And is that God's creation too?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Doesn't say anything about aliens in the Bible, although it kind of like people kind of read into it, right?
Angels. I mean, angels could be. You think about that when you
warring gods and all this other stuff. You know, I mean, they're not saying gray aliens per se.
Yeah,
those things maybe came after, and then that's what's left, and that's what's here, kind of dicking around.
Well, and if you actually look at and illustrate, and of course we could do a Bible talking aliens, that's a whole nother thing. You look at some of the descriptions from the Bible of aliens. I mean, it's not like a beautiful angel with, golden hair and wings. Like, some of them are kind of crazy. They're kind of like, oh, that sounds terrifying. If I was just there in a talking bush, you know what I mean? Like, what is that?
A lot of people like high up in the government have been heard talking, or they've had conversations with people like generals or say admirals or whoever it's been, that say, stay away from this conversation. And people that might be in the know, maybe, because they adamantly say, stay away from this conversation. Like, let's not go there because this is demonic.
Yeah.
And like, really? This is a high up brass in the military saying like something's demonic? I thought you guys believed in, cold hard facts, and by them kind of going to the Bible and saying, nah, just leave this alone. These things are demonic. Like, let's not go there. Maybe they're just interested in the tech. They don't want anything to do with the thing.
Yeah.
And that's a possibility too. Like, here's another thing. And I know, right? Like, we're talking about souls here. We're kind of getting deep into this soul thing.
Yeah.
This is the other part of it that I wanted to talk about, is that they've been talked about as being psychic vampires. So again, they communicate telepathically. They don't talk, they talk telepathically through us. So we don't see their lips move. We don't hear anything with our ears. We hear it in our mind. Mm-hmm. And supposedly their nourishment, bear with me here. Again, we think, right? The worms, talking about the dirt, right?
Yep.
Their nourishment comes from our emotions. And that's how they're nourished, is through
our highs and lows. And
it's the highs. It's the adrenaline rush, like fear. And that's why a lot of war zones have seen these things. They're always flying over battles beforehand. Like I think it was Constantine that talked about it. There was a glowing shield in the sky before a great battle, and glowing shield. Well, again, they're describing things that they had back in the day. A glowing wagon wheel, right? Like, okay, that's a disc.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let's not read into that too much, but that's pretty obvious. That's a disc, and like a disc in the sky. Okay. Yeah. And they like that stuff. They kind of feed off the fear and the hate and all this other stuff. And they're nourished through that. I know it sounds weird. It sounds stupid. But it leads back to the soul thing,
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think that is, because even seeing now as we are in society, I mean, I can even break it down with our 24/7 news cycles. And what is it? It's all fear mongering. It's all this. So-and-so killed this, and we have this. And you see less more positive stuff being out there. And if someone is behind this or has their fingers in this, why not make us more on edge? Why not make us more and paranoid and angry with one another, with each other, and everything like that? Because if that's feeding them, well, let's just keep pumping it out. You know what I mean? Let's take another bump. Let's get it, because we got to keep feeding it. We got to keep feeding the monster.
Yeah, maybe they're junkies. I don't know. And that kind of gets into like who's in bed with these things. And I don't, me personally, I don't put it past the government or these tech companies that have maybe possibly been in bed with this stuff since the 40s or 50s, right? Like there's supposedly there was meetings and things. I don't know. Like
black cloaks and candles and paddles and everything like that.
Okay, so you hear about like these seances where they talk to quote unquote these aliens in these seances, and that they give the Nazis talked about this. That's why they were so into the occult. They were obsessed with the occult. And this is, again, like I think that there's like some correlation, and again, this is going to get weird, but I think there's some correlation. Like the Nazis, they were way ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, way ahead. And they talk about, even today, people have talked about like these elites sit in seances with these tripping balls, right? And then they get into, and they exchange like bad, evil stuff that causes fear for technology. And they also, this has also been said before all this stuff, you know, you talk about the cabal and all this other conspiracy stuff that's going on now. They talked about this back with the Nazis, and then how the Nazis got a lot of their technology. And I don't think that they escaped to Antarctica and like had a war down there, but I think there was something there. I think that they had a little help from whoever. These Aryans. I don't know. You know, you talk about the tall whites, they're Aryan. I don't know. Maybe put two and two together, dude.
Beautiful like, blonde hair and blue eyes. I mean, watch
here's
out.
The thing is I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I don't believe in that shit. In the last 3 years, I sure don't. Right? I do not believe in coincidences. If it cracks like a duck, it's a fucking duck, dude. So like I start to kind of put more of this stuff together, like, whoa. How did they get so far advanced? Were they just that much better? How? I mean, they still produce some awesome stuff, right? But not like us. I mean, we took all their guys, right? And why'd we do that? And all those Nazis talked about, you know, von Braun talked about all those experiments and everything with maybe UFO technology and things like that. But that's maybe one of the reasons why they were obsessed with the occult. This it's wild, man. It's a rabbit hole.
I thought we were going to talk about the 3-boob alien from Total Recall, but holy
totally
shit.
do her.
Absolutely. I mean, 3 boobs, that's better than 2, man. Are you kidding me? No, this was awesome. And I know we could go on and on and on about this, but well, let's put a pin in a good chunk of this because I think this is stuff that we can expand on. And you and I have so much. And you and I are going to dive into health and well-being. You and I are going to dive into cars. You and I are going to dive into everything on here. But I think we can start part 1 of maybe 100-part series and looking at all these different aspects, because I'm really intrigued by a lot of things that I've heard tonight. And this is coming from a guy that honestly, I joke around a lot about it. And maybe I joke because I don't know enough, or maybe I don't want to experience enough or think enough about it. But for anyone listening right now who watches this is good. This is stuff to chew on, and we'll talk about it. So
in closing too, this is like one of the subjects. I know it sounds weird, but it's one of the subjects that I'm more serious about. You'll see me in kind of a serious, more of a serious state of mind. And the reason being is because there's a couple questions that we all want to know: is what happens to us when we die, and are we alone? And I think this is something that it hasn't been taken seriously. And then the people that talk about this, they kind of get mocked because there's some wackadoos out there, man. There's probably some people that think I'm a wackadoo, but you know what? At least I'm trying to ask questions and trying to at least like answer them in a different sort of way, I guess.
No, and actually, you bring up a good point, because especially me as I've gotten older and now being a husband and now a father, I've thought more about what happens after I die. I thought more about what's going on around me. And I think it's that mortality that kicks in, and now we want to know these answers. And is there something there? Is this the red pill, blue pill type deal? You know what I mean? Like, I think there's more there as we get older, these answers that we want. And even the wackadoos. I'm not even so much on the wackadoos. Maybe the Bigfoot people, and we can talk about that on a different day, Bigfoot and all that. But because you know what, Hunter, and you brought up parallel universes.
Interdimensional, man.
Exactly, right? That's what it is. It's so crazy. Maybe he's just popping in and we just happen to see him. And that's questions there that I don't think it's nuts to talk about, because for any of us to think that we know exactly what the answer is, whether you're an atheist, whether you're a Christian, whether you're agnostic, or whatever, you're a believer, non-believer, and we don't know. We're human. We're thinking like human beings, and we still don't have any of the fucking answers. I think we got the name of our podcast.
What's that? We think like humans?
Thinking
like humans?
Thinking like a human. That's, I think.
There you go.
That's what it is.
I got a question though. Where are you now? Where are you now on this alien UFO subject? Are you like 60% like, okay, there's some, are you telling me that there's something there?
I'm intrigued. And mostly because you brought up the soul thing, because when you look at, and again, this is something we can really dive into, but when being a religious guy, in the Bible, there's a creator. but it never specifies that creator other than this one guy. Now, I do believe that it was one thing, okay, and we were created from this, but there's a lot of speculation in that. I still believe in one God. Don't strike me down, big fella. All right, I know he's listening right now.
You're already on the list anyway.
I do believe, though, there's also more validity to that because we had to come from something. Now, what was that something? Just because a bunch of people have reinterpreted what it was, like that's kind of where I've gotten. I know this. I'm kind of rambling. To me, I feel like the Bible has been misconstrued for generations to benefit the wrong people. I think what has happened is there's been a lot of people with nice silk robes and wine and gold and being treated very well because of what they said. Oh, no, God told me this.
And really? They sit in a little city called, Vatican City and tell you how to live.
I'm right there. And it's the same thing with like the Joel Osteens and all that. These guys are wearing Gucci suits and flying around in fucking private airplanes.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what Jesus had in mind, in my honest opinion. So it's very hard for me to be like, oh yeah, that's what, he wants me, Jesus wants me to send more money to Joel Osteen. So that's kind of the picture I'm painting. I think we have grossly abused our creator and our savior in my mind. But that's what gets us into this conversation right here is what is the outlying stuff there? What are we missing? Because we have taken advantage of a possible scenario that was there. Does that make sense?
Humans. Yeah. Total sense. Joel, who is it?
Osteen,
Is that the guy? Is that the guy that got confronted about flying in the private jet and like?
No, that's the other guy. The guy with the crazy eye. That guy
looks possessed.
He looks like in the movie The Mask. He looks like the bad guy who puts the mask on. What's his name? That's what he looks like. He's got the crazy eyes and everything like that.
Can I do my best impression of him?
Yeah, please do.
Whoever talk about it.
But there was a guy.
You saw that, right?
Oh yeah.
With that, just like,
Did you see the video where he was blowing away? He was blowing away COVID. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't.
I gotta send it to you. This is maybe this is for another day because
it is that not amazing that us humans fall for that stuff, but it's because we are human, right?
And we don't know.
We're looking for leaders.
We're looking for something, and again, those answers, those three things or the two things is, why am I here? Who created me? What's there after I'm gone? Like those three things that we don't know, but we also kind of know, and we're conscious of it, and. I think that's we'll never know until we die. That's right. But no, to kind of answer that and to go back to where I'm at, I tell you what, buddy, I'm intrigued and I'm excited to talk more about this because as a religious guy and a guy who has a very personal relationship and also a lot of guilt and a lot of that kind of that humanism's in me that I struggle with. This is interesting to talk about because it almost kind of, I don't know, it maybe gives you some semblance of relief because maybe there is something there that
right.
Okay, it may not say exactly, but how do I know that it's not somewhere? The answer isn't somewhere else. You know what I mean? So
right.
I don't know, man. That's interesting, dude. You might be making me question my entire being.
I'm glad that you're kind of like you're intrigued at it because in my mind we're over the Rubicon. Like we're over the Rubicon on this stuff. Something is going on. Right?
I think it's foolish at this point to not even flirt with the idea. I think for anyone to be like, no way.
Yep.
That's such a small-minded thing because when we look into a telescope, into this, and to me, this beautiful universe that was created for us, again, by God, and as we continue this conversation, whatever that God may be, because again, going back to the Bible, it never says exactly what God is. There was nothing, and then there was God. So you're going to tell me you know exactly what God looks like. All right, you know exactly what this is or what we're doing. You don't, and I don't think that's sacrilegious to say. I don't think that closes off the conversation. I think that opens up the conversation, and that's exactly what we're having here. And so that's where my intrigue is. And let's really we can expand on this. And it's great. It's great.
Cool, man.
This was way different than what I thought it was going to be. I thought you and I were going to end up just insulting each other for 20 minutes and then that one.
Well, you're still a huge piece of shit.
Well, I know that. You're a real piece of shit. You know that, you son of a bitch.
I mean, you still haven't forgave me for banging those two girlfriends.
Those two.
Was one or two?
3 if you do in the full tally.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did have that threesome with the 2. Yeah,
two and a half right there.
Oh.
Hey,
well, that once he was a little large and in charge.
It was
that
worth.
Could have been like a foursome.
It was worth it scratching that piece of shit SUV you had. That's what it was. Yes. We'll tell that story down the road. We'll tell. Don't you ever. Well, all right. I think we can wrap this up. Dwight, this is awesome.
All right, man.
I'm glad we got to do that. Everyone, tune in next time. I don't know when that'll be. We'll keep you posted. I'll probably start we'll figure this out. But I think we should call this Thinking Like a Human. Or Thinking Human.
Thinking Human. There you go.
With Brock and Dwight. And maybe we'll have some special guests. Oh, by the way, this was brought to you by, whether he likes it or not, this was brought to you by Zach Johnson Auto Detailing. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can email Zach right there.
If you ever have a friend that drives your SUV, your shitty SUV, is that what you said? Your shitty SUV through a barbed wire fence, he can fix it up for you.
He'll get that thing looking great. Zach Johnson Auto Detailing in Blue Mounds, Wisconsin. All right, let's wrap this up, and we will have more in Thinking Human with Brock and Dwight.